friends, and welcome back to Rugged Mountain Homestead. My name is Sarah, and today we are going to talk and do things regarding surgery prep. As most of you know, I am scheduled for surgery in 2 weeks on my back, and I'll have more conversation about that in our live tomorrow night. We are going live at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, 5 Mountain, and 4 Pacific. So I hope you'll join us. But let's go ahead and get started and talk about what surgery prep looks like for the homestead, how it's going to affect the running of the homestead, and what I'm doing to prepare. First things first, Dean is out of coffee creamer, and coffee creamer is one of the simple things that I do for him here on the homestead. So while we are going to make some coffee creamer and I'm going to refill his jar, I'm also going to be filling this jar. Yes, you see that right, that is a half-gallon jar. But he does use coffee creamer in a quart size. I'm expected to be down for a 3-week recovery period. And so I want to make sure that he has enough to last him that amount of time, because we do consume quite a bit of coffee here on the homestead. So as most of you know, powdered sugar is just regular sugar ground down to a very fine consistency. So I use the evaporated cane juice organic sugar, and the crystals are a little bit larger. So I put 2/3 of a cup into the food processor, and then I grind it to a powder. All that is powdered sugar. So now that the 2/3 of sugar is ground down to a powder, I'm going to add dry milk. Now really you have to find your own ratios. Coffee creamer cannot just be an exact recipe. You can start out this way and just adjust it to your liking. So I'm going to put in 2 cups of dry milk. I'm using a 1/2 cup increment. Actually, I'm only going to put in 1 cup at a time. And the reason why is because I'm going to let the food processor kind of whiz that up together, and then I will put the other cup in. And again, this is not an exact science. It took me a few times of making it to get it to Dean's liking, but he was a good sport about it all along. And I also sent some of this to my dad recently, and he really liked it as well. He said it was a much richer flavor than the coffee creamer, the powdered coffee creamer that you get in the store. And of course, without all the synthetic ingredients and the stabilizers and all that, I'm sure it does taste quite a bit better. I've used it some, but I don't use a lot of sugar in my coffee. I should take that back, because my favorite coffee creamers, homemade, have sweetened condensed milk in them. That's another recipe and another story. All right, so let's finish this up. And friends, that is it. Now, if you look at the back of the container of powdered coffee creamer, once you take out all the added ingredients that are not good for you and not essential to having a nice cup of coffee, it does boil down to milk and sugar. And that is what homemade coffee creamer looks like. Absolutely perfect. And so with the measurements that I just used, it will give him a quart jar of coffee creamer. And so I'm just going to refill his quart jar, and then I will make enough to fill this half-gallon jar. So that basically will give him 3 weeks worth of coffee creamer, and I don't have to worry about him running out or making a trip to the store and ingesting something I would prefer he not. Okay friends, here you have it. There's a half-gallon container of dried coffee creamer, and then this quart container. And in complete transparency, to do this half-gallon jar and this quart jar, making it and filling it took me a total time of 20 minutes. And this is going to last him a very long time. Talking to Dean for a moment off camera, he told me that he thinks one of these jars lasts him 2 weeks or almost 2 weeks. I really don't pay attention to the amount of time. I just wait for him to let me know he's almost out. So now I can do one of my very favorite things to do, and that is cross it off my list. And talking about lists, a thought just crossed my mind probably 30 seconds ago. Now, when I make this coffee creamer and I put it in the cupboard, he knows where it is for his immediate use. But if I were to store this coffee creamer refill jar somewhere in the kitchen, he's going to have no idea where it is. So I am making him a little list of location of items that he's going to need while I am recovering. Just like this here. Some of you may say I shouldn't need to make directions for him, or he should have a handle on all these things, but we really operate in more traditional roles here on our homestead. And if Dean were under the weather, recovering from surgery or something like that, even now, if I need something, to go into his shop is like going into another world for me. I have absolutely no idea where anything is. You know, if I were to need a hammer and nails, I have no idea. If I do, he brings them to me and usually asks me what I need them for and ends up doing it himself. But we tend to stay in our lane there. So when he's in my kitchen, he doesn't know where anything is. And so that's why I make these lists for him. Just like this is laundry operation list. And it just basically tells, you know, what cycles I use, what temperature, you know, and everything's right there for him because he is taking on a lot of the household tasks as minimally as possible. But still, things like laundry he's going to have to do. And like I said, we have more traditional roles here on our homestead, and generally I'm the one taking care of the laundry. So I would like him to know how I do it. Okay, so when I found out that this surgery was a definite must do, I was told that it's a 3-week recovery period. So for safe keeping, I just went ahead and planned out for 4 weeks. That way, I'm covered. So I have 4 weeks of breakfast and dinners, and I'm making freezer meals and things that can stay in the pantry, and just making it as easy as possible on Dean so he can just throw it in the crock pot or heat it in the oven, things like that. You guys were with me when I went away to Virginia and I did this for 10 days. This is just the same thing on a little bit larger scale. So now that we've talked about food and how I'm handling that and the extras like coffee creamer and just all the little things on a daily basis that you do that you don't think about. The next thing that really came up first was the animals. Dean and I take a shared responsibility with the dogs. He usually handles them in the morning and I handle them in the evening. The chickens are a different story. The chickens have basically been my endeavor while he built everything I needed for them, which was the largest part of the chickens, taking care of them. So I'm not going to be able to get up and walk out there and take care of them and do my usual responsibilities. So that is another aspect of how having one of us down on the homestead, you can just see how it has a ripple effect. I do know that one of the things I am going to feel sad about is my lack of interaction with the animals. From time to time, I come out here and I bring them treats like these sunflower seeds to the chickens. I am more than thankful to Dean for taking on the added task of feeding and watering and checking, make sure the nest boxes are refreshed, and collecting eggs because our girls are still laying. Now we have 15 laying hens, and of course they're not laying to their full potential right now because it's winter. And I'm grateful that we have any eggs coming in at all. But on the daily, we're getting roughly half a dozen. Want some sunflower seeds? Yeah. How about you ladies over there? There's some for everyone. There's enough for everyone. Now, are the chickens pets? No. They are strictly for their eggs. But that doesn't mean I can't enjoy them. And I really do. I love to sit on the bench sometimes in the morning with my coffee when it's not too cold out and just watch them. What are you trying to tell me? There you are, ladies. I will check for some afternoon eggs. We have one. I will take it. And it's pretty fresh. It's still warm in my hand. So while it's relatively nice out, we're in the upper 50s today and it's beautiful. I'm going to take you to another part of the homestead that's going to be affected. And it's kind of a vulnerable spot for me, and I'll tell you why. All right. The garden did not get put to bed in the manner she should have this year. As a lot of you recall, I went to Virginia in September, late September to early October. And during that time, I mean, there were still some things out here that were still producing, like the greens, and we still had some squash, and, you know, we had pumpkins and things like that. So then this issue with my back had started actually in August, early August. And I didn't think too much about it. And then it was late August when I found out, hey, you have a pretty significant scoliosis. And of course, my lower back issue with the stenosis. So when I got home, I was experiencing increasing pain as time wore on. So when I got home in, you know, the beginning of October, the 8th or something like that, I didn't have it in me to come out here and clean up. And so I've done little bits at a time, but this really is my deal too. Dean will come out here and help me with whatever I ask him to do. And he built these garden beds, and he and a friend put all this fencing in, and I mean, he has a lot of work in here, as do I. But I'm not going to be ashamed. As you can see, the shade cloth is still up. That shade cloth is going to be used for something else next year, and we're going to get a better one. The wind in areas has just ripped it. This bed actually got done. It got done in increments. Then when we did the fall complete clean out of the chicken coop, I just had Dean bring the chips down here in the tractor, and then I just spread them out across this bed. The other day I was feeling pretty good, and it was a cool morning. Well, most mornings here are cool to cold, but it wasn't bad. And so I actually came out here and was walking around, and just like always happens, I find things to do in the garden. So I started ripping out tomato plants that are just long overdue. Now, as you can see, I got from one end of the trellis to the halfway point, from the halfway point not quite down to the other end, and my back started screaming at me. I started feeling that all too familiar pain, and I knew it was time to stop. So the stuff basically got thrown in the walkway. I did take half of it to the compost bin, and I know that if I ask Ding to, he'll come and he'll clean that out for me. You know, as I said, we have traditional roles here on our homestead. That's the way we like it. That's the way we designed it. That's the way we want our marriage to be. But don't get me wrong, he is an absolute wonderful husband. And anything that I ask him to do, a lot of times I don't even have to ask him. He knows when I'm not feeling well. You know, he even says he can tell by my tone of voice or my lack of talking. He knows all those signals. And so just like yesterday, after I'd been doing laundry, I just caught him in the bedroom folding clothes. Didn't ask, you know, or anything like that. Just knowing that it would save me that little extra something. So as you can see, this bed's pretty nasty. And I still have this side to do for cleaning up. This bed's not bad. You know, I have my patch of thyme here. I'm really hoping that it comes back since it didn't get covered up. I just don't know. I really hope it will though. Now, I took some of the pumpkin vines here and the dill stalks, and when I cut them, I just laid them on top here. I'm not going to pick it up because I did a minute ago and I got a prickly thing in my finger. But I laid it over top of where I had the oregano, hoping that it will spring back to life. Let's see here. I had a big patch of oregano. Yeah, and it's all covered by the pumpkins. And I will know soon enough. So obviously the garden is in need of some help and some attention, and I plan to do that. I'm happy about it taking place in February. I have no problem with that because it's a 4-week recovery period, 3 to 4 week recovery period, and that takes me to the end of March, and that's just perfect for gardening season in this zone and climate. You know, I will be getting ready to do all the things, and so I will come down here then and make sure everything's cleaned out and pristine for the upcoming gardening season. But for now, that's just going to have to be another thing placed on hold, and that's okay. Also, it just occurred to me collecting this egg in the afternoon. Like I said, we are getting about 6 a day, 6 to 7 a day, which is fantastic because it's winter. Now, when the man who delivers our water to fill our cistern comes each month, he gets 4 dozen eggs, but I'm halfway to fulfilling that now. So it just occurred to me that we're going to have all these eggs coming in. Dean does not cook or anything like that. So I'm going to actually have to write down the recipe for him for using the calcium hydroxide, cal lime, leave a jar, and directions on how to water glass these eggs. So he's going to be quite busy, and I am quite thankful for him and all the things he does for the homestead and for me. Now, I will be having my Azure Standard haul video come out next week. We will be picking up that order the week of the 9th is all I know right now. But I will get that filmed and I will get that posted. I'm just not sure after next week if I will get anything posted after that for 3 weeks. So if you don't hear from me for 3 weeks, please just be patient, stick with me, and know that I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. Until then, take care.